Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 do-it-yourself advocate show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender. I am so proud to announce that we are hitting episode 95 with your host, Irene Parker. And of course, we couldn't do this without tarda.org and their beautiful team of people who just spend hours and hours helping Irene find the right resources for the solutions, because that's what Irene provides, is the resources for their solutions to the problems. Now, not every timeshare issue is a major problem. Sometimes it's just a matter of how you use it. But anyway, here to join me is Irene with some wonderful news about a law that we've been so happy to hear coming down the tube there in legislation. But it's a law that is about transparency that could help prevent most of the problems that we discuss on the show. Irene, hi, welcome. Yay!
Hi.
You went on a trip, and tell us about it.
Well, it's confidential, but I do want to say that I want to bring our guests on too, because they have been reaching out to their local members of Congress. So let's share it with Kimberly here, and we have one more guest joining us today, and that is Olivia. And Olivia has reached out to her timeshare company, but she hasn't yet reached out to her local members of Congress. So that'll be our next step. And both Kimberly from Louisiana, my favorite state with, I think, the best food in the nation. And we have Olivia, also a good eating state in California, originally from Australia. And what we look for, Kimberly, is patterns of complaints when you hear the same thing over and over and over again. So the Timeshare Transparency Act was introduced by Senator John Curtis in Utah, and the co-sponsor of this bipartisan Senate bill is Adam Schiff in California. So we are thrilled that 140 people, including Kimberly, have reached out to their local members of Congress. And we have one Missouri senator that said, we're going to vote no because we're not in favor of any regulation. Missouri has a disbarred attorney, disbarred in 2017, hired by Diamond Resorts to sell timeshare points in 2018. Ryan McMillan is his name, and he's just been sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for marking himself exempt from income taxes, working for 4 timeshare companies since 2018. How can you say that there are adequate regulations? So in the case of Kimberly and Olivia, both of them were told you can refinance. And my eyes just bulged, Olivia, when I got to the point where you said they gave you a home loan toolkit. And, that is just unbelievable. The other complaint we're hearing over and over again, we have both of our guests today bought from Hilton Grand Vacations. We're scheduled to have 2 more Hilton buyers on next week. One of them, his wife has a condition that stress triggers amnesia, and he has requested over and over that they not call his wife, but they continue to do so. We have Jean in Pennsylvania, who's a widow, and her husband died suddenly, and the $3,000 a month that he earned was no longer available to pay the Hilton loan, and she is getting endless phone calls. So we've advised her to send a cease and desist letter, and she has repeatedly asked them to stop asking for her husband. And she was just in tears when she
Well, that's
talked today.
irritating. I
Yeah.
get constant mails 4 years after my husband's death, and I still get letters pertaining, and not collection letters, but just business letters. And I'm like, I have informed people for years. So yeah, that's irritating. But this show is short. Let's see what we've got going on here.
Yeah, we're going to start with Kimberly because she's a little simpler. She purchased one time, Olivia bought 4 times. And, we just talked about a death and a medical condition. So Kimberly is in the middle of a hardship situation. So Kimberly, let's start with how you ended up at a Hilton presentation and where you're at with your request for a hardship release. Kimberly? Kimberly? Oh, we lost her. Well, okay, let's start with with Olivia. Then maybe
She
and
said
Olivia.
just FYI, she said she can't hear anyone. She has no sound.
Oh, she
Oh,
had
I can
sound.
hear you, Olivia. I can't hear anyone else.
Oh.
Oh, well then Olivia will be our air traffic
Yeah, I
controller.
can repeat the question. Basically, they just wanted to know, like, how did you get started? How did you first get involved? And where are you at now with your process of claiming hardship and working with the Hilton Grand Vacations team?
Okay.
We're
I ended
fortunate to
up
have a media
joining
expert with
Hilton Grand Vacations in April of 2024. And literally the next month, my husband was sick and experienced a GI bleed, which, if y'all have ever gone through anything like that, it's horrible. And it took him several months to recoup. So, in the process, after he recouped, we were actually going to try to, schedule a trip with Hilton to Charleston, matter of fact. And we had access problems. We couldn't get property that was available, which what I thought was interesting during this experience was as a Hilton member, a Diamond member, I was able to reserve the property on the Hilton app. But as a Grand Vacation member, I did not have any access and the property was full. So I thought that was very interesting. And then in the following year, in March, that's when my husband was diagnosed with the bulging discs in his back. So traveling was not an option and still is not an option today. So I have requested a couple of times to Hilton to try to cancel our membership, see what options we have. And it's been denied one time. And then I recently just submitted some documentation a month ago after he had to go back to the ER for his back situation. I'm waiting to hear again, but it has not been an easy process at all, as y'all can imagine.
And if you could ask, we're fortunate that we have a media expert with us, Kimberly, today, Olivia. So could you ask her if she is going to consider defaulting on the loan?
Yeah, Kimberly, are you going to consider defaulting on the loan?
It is something I definitely am considering. It's something that I would not, I would have never thought about doing in the past. But at the point where we are now in our life, and the whole idea of trying to do this was finding out a way to be able to travel more affordably, and not being able to do that, I might be left with no option.
Oh, that's really horrible. Well, let's go ahead and switch to Olivia. And at least it sounds like maybe because Kimberly's on her cell phone, that might have something to do with it. But Olivia, same questions for you.
I still can hear you, Olivia. I just can't hear them.
That's okay. They're going to ask me some questions now. I'll
Okay.
let you know when it's back to you.
Thank you.
So same questions, Olivia. How now we've had Jonathan Stoker on the show, and he is with Vacation Ownership Advisors. And instead of a lifelong contract, I signed up with my resort co-op, which was 48,000 RCI points every year for 3 years, and I'm done. It was less than $4,000. And he is a former a former director of sales for Hilton Grand Vacations, and he also for Marriott. So both you and Kimberly have talked about problems with availability, and we're hearing more and more, and you had mentioned you wanted to go to Bora Bora in Australia. I think it's harder because you might have to go through an exchange to do that, but I always say, well, how can there be problems with availability if you have so many people, 300, 500,000 people that have been Hilton owners for years and years and like it? We have a board member that has the same complaint about availability. So if you could touch on that as well, that seems to be one of your primary concerns is availability. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I think availability, yes, because when we first signed up, like they took us through an exercise where we had to write down, like, if we could travel anywhere in the world, like, where would we want to go and spend most of our time? And being Australian, but living now in America, like, for us to be able to go back home and use a membership like this back home when we're visiting friends and family, like, that's of real benefit to us. So we mentioned that being able to use it in Australia, being able to use it in New Zealand, because my husband also has a lot of family in New Zealand, would make this really worthwhile for us to make the spend. That, and then, we added Bora Bora in there because it's like, where would we want to go when we're not traveling to visit friends and family? What's like the most exotic, exciting location? However, so those were the places that we said that we wanted to sign up for and that we would be excited to use the points in, and they said would be available. However, after signing up and trying to figure out how to learn the program, we couldn't find anything like that with our immediate, points and through the Hilton Grand Vacations site. And we had been told, like, go to RCI, but when I was trying to use the RCI platform, like, that was the platform that we have access to. I don't know if that's different to what you've spoken about when we've had chats, Irene, but it was so difficult to try and book anything. Like, there were the availability on the RCI program was not like, okay, I just want to go book 3 nights here. If there was 8 nights available at a property, you had to book all 8 nights, or if there was only 2 nights available, like the availability on RCI was property by property. And if there was 8 nights available, I couldn't book 3 of those 8 nights. Like, I would have had to have booked the whole thing. So that made it even more difficult to try and use Hilton Grand Vacation points elsewhere, because there was no flexibility within it. And the properties were absolutely not comparable from what we were seeing through RCI to what we were, promised and shown and talked through with HGV. So that was frustrating. And we complained about that and shared those frustrations during times where we went back to, sales meetings, which I know is what they are now, but previously they never promoted going to a sales meeting as a sales meeting. They said this was an education meeting. This was how we would, if we went there, we would get to learn how to properly maximize our points, how to utilize the program, all the features and benefits. However, whenever we went to these meetings, we really learned nothing other than we had originally bought a bad deal. And, to get out of that bad deal, we needed to upgrade to be in a better deal. And we would see better properties and more availability if we did upgrade. So hence, we went back and we're like, okay, well, we need to upgrade now. But every time that happened, we just were made to feel like fools for buying the last round of points, or that they were doing a favor for the next round of points. So yeah, it's just frustrating to have upgraded 4 times now and not have, what's been promised be available to us.
You've had an initial purchase and then 3 upgrades, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the bill's provisions that is to provide 14-day cancellation periods. Some states are 3, 5, 7, or 10. But what even the Senator Curtis's office was not aware is that you don't have access to the booking site until after the rescission period. So promised availability cannot be determined because they always say you should have read the contract. You had 5 or 10 days to cancel. So then when you reached out to, let me give a little background because I'm a Diamond member. Hilton Grand Vacation bought Blue Green Vacations and they bought Diamond Resorts. And if I'm a Diamond member, I go to a presentation, I'm usually not allowed, but if I would, they would say you have to buy some more Diamond points to have access to HGV Max so that I can book Hilton properties. Now, wasn't one of your upgrades had to do with HGV Max?
Yeah, because the second time, like we'd upgraded because they said that was going to provide us the availability and that was going to get us, access to additional properties. And so that's why we weren't seeing, properties like in Australia, New Zealand, Bora Bora, etc. So then we upgraded to HGV Max. However, like nothing has changed in the couple of years that have passed now on the HGV Max, except for the addition of Great Wolf Lodges, which the points conversion for those is like 10 times what any other HGV property is.
And that was a Diamond Resort property that I learned that it would cost like some ungodly amount of money to use points compared to booked online. Can you ask Kimberly what problems she had with availability?
I can hear y'all now.
Oh, great.
Hallelujah.
I don't need a translator.
No, and I'm so sorry. I was telling y'all earlier in my story that when we did try to book the first trip that we were going to take, like in between my husband, and his GI bleed, we tried for Charleston, and there's a nice Hilton property there. Well, when I went in to try to book that site, it was, sold out. But yet on my Hilton Diamond app, I could book it and pay money for it. So I thought that was very interesting is that we've paid thousands of dollars for this, property or into this timeshare, but then when we want to use it, we can't. But yet if I wanted to pay money out of my own pocket, I could book it.
That
That was
happened to
interesting.
us as well in Chicago, like visiting multiple times. We would go to Chicago to visit family, and there's a property in Chicago that you can book. But I still have never stayed there in the amount of times that we visited there because it's exact same situation. It keeps saying sold out. But again, if I go to my Hilton Honors and try and book through that way, I absolutely can and pay for it.
And I want to take a minute here to go over the Timeshare Transparency Act. If there's any of these provisions, these 5 provisions that you feel would have benefited you, a single document itemizing all acquisition and maintenance costs, disclosure of modifiable fees. We had a Diamond member. Diamond charged $1,000 per contract. He had 3 contracts, $3,000. They've adopted Blue Green's policy of 18 months of maintenance fees. Now they're asking for $30,200 to take points back. Third, provide clear documented options to exit ownership at purchase. He would have never in his right mind. And then we talked about the 14-day, and then allow buyers time to privately review your documents. So that is, the provisions of this bill. And Kimberly, you reached out to your senators, and even though is your husband 55 or older?
He is not. He is 53.
Okay, well, he's getting close. So we still
He
had you
is.
send to AARP. AARP is supporting the bill. The Timeshare Industry Lobby, the American Resort Development Association, is opposed to the bill. The president and CEO is Jason Gamble, who said, unlike what exit companies tell you, it doesn't have to be time-consuming, expensive, or difficult to exit a timeshare. And even with no loan, we have an upcoming guest that had 5 different timeshares, and she's just in a living nightmare with none of them. One of the 5 is now she's been able to take it back. And one thing I want to make sure that I don't forget to mention is the 35 minutes pre-recorded. We have Brian Rogers of Timeshare Users Group and Jeremy of Destination Timeshare. And then I have down here Jonathan Stoker. That's who I would like to have back on the show with both of you, or maybe it's with 25 minutes. It's good to have 2 guests. We'll have Jonathan and Olivia and Jonathan and Kimberly we need somebody that can help to see if it can be salvaged. Now, Kimberly, you're dealing with the medical. Olivia, you have stopped making payments, correct?
Yeah, we stopped 3 months ago now. So
And are
now
you-
it's hitting our credit report, and that's obviously affecting us. But I feel like it's worth going through that as a hardship to get this sorted.
And what type of social, and Kimberly, I forgot to ask you, what you said you're at work now. What type of work do you do?
I'm in sales, pharmaceutical sales.
Oh, pharmaceutical sales. And
Yeah.
Olivia, you have your media company. Is that your company?
Yes.
And what's the nature of your media company?
So we're a marketing and advertising company that acts as like an outsourced marketing department for businesses.
So we'll be drafting you onto the charter board, hopefully.
Happy to help.
Several things here is like you mentioned earlier, Irene. There's a trend of certain escalating situations. I think you mentioned too that they were both informed that they could refinance both of you.
They're at 17.99% is Kimberly and 16.25%. So, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Kim, because Olivia did her timeshare math. Since November, their payments increased from $125 a month to $638 per month.
Yeah, thank you for doing the math. Nobody ever does that.
Well, that one more thing, the equivalent is $364 per month in principal and $273 a month in interest out the window. So that's really, really important. But we're winding down here, Kim. Go ahead with your final closing comments. This was very informative today from
Well,
both
Can I
Kimberly
just say
and
one
Olivia.
thing just on
Sure.
that with the jump in price? There's been no feature or benefit or change or maximization to our product with the higher amount of price, other than obviously points. But yeah, there's been no change in the program, which is what was promised if
And
we
you
did
said you
that.
even paid more per point on the last purchase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
There's no
shame.
property value to this whatsoever. To me, it should be a non-secured loan. I don't understand why it is a secured loan, but this is certainly what should be considered an unsecured loan because there is absolutely no brick or mortar. There's just a piece of paper. It's worse than a protective order. There's nothing of value to lien the property value on. I'm sure that you get charged property taxes. Again, where are they getting that value from? So there's HOA fees, I'm sure, even with the points. I've never understood that. But my wrap up here is how pressure legislation to change the laws, because it's not just about the future. It could be retroactive too, but it could help you in the future.
We're updating the from the January to the March newsletter. We're just updating it to please
Right.
go to tarta.org, and it's got all the details on the bill and how to find your local members of Congress. It looks like we're out of time, Kimberly.
And
Thank
just
you.
remember, don't stop fighting. But come to Irene and tarta.org for ideas and resources. That's very important. Watch our resource library afterwards. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Olivia, for sharing your stories. I know it's difficult. Irene, thank you for your work. And everyone, don't forget, Mondays, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can learn more. You can text us your ideas and your stories. Come be on the show, but help us change the laws. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed day. Stay healthy so you stay wealthy.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.